Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling a topic that's super relevant to what's happening in the world right now. Renewable energy.
Yeah.
But
hmm
we're going to be looking at it through a really specific lens, and that is youth employment in South Africa.
Right.
So
hmm Yeah.
we've got excerpts from a podcast episode script that we're going to be diving into.
Okay.
And basically, this deep dive, what we really want to uncover is this kind of surprising connection
hmm
between this burgeoning renewable energy sector and job creation, particularly how this could be a solution to
Got
South
it.
Africa's youth unemployment crisis.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So to kind of set the stage,
Okay.
I think it's helpful to look at the bigger picture first.
hmm
So what is happening globally with renewable energy and jobs?
Well, I think, we often talk about the environmental benefits
Right.
of renewable energy, but the economic possibilities are
Mm.
also huge.
Yeah.
And the International Renewable Energy Agency, they estimate that over 14 million people worldwide
Wow.
are already employed in this sector.
Okay.
And that number is projected to double by 2030.
That's incredible.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so that's a lot of job growth.
Yeah, yeah.
So where does South Africa fit into all of this?
Well, South Africa is really well positioned to capitalize on this trend.
Okay.
They've got abundant sunshine, wind resources,
Right.
and they've already started taking steps to actually harness this potential.
Okay.
In fact, they have this program called the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Procurement Program.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that program?
It's basically a program designed to encourage private companies to invest in renewable energy projects in South Africa.
Okay.
So like solar farms, wind farms,
Okay, got it.
that sort of thing.
So they're not just talking about it, they're actually doing something.
Exactly, yeah, and they're creating jobs.
Okay, so how many jobs are we talking about here?
Well, in its early stages, the REIPPP,
Okay.
that's the acronym,
Okay.
has already created over 60,000 job years.
Wow.
So that's
incredible.
like a whole town
Yeah.
popping up with jobs
Wow.
just because of these projects.
Okay, so it's really having a real impact.
Yeah.
But I imagine building these renewable energy projects require some pretty specific skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so it's not just about like putting up solar panels.
No, it's way more than that.
What are we talking about here?
Well, they need engineers, project managers,
Yeah.
environmental impact assessment experts.
Oh, wow.
Even logistics,
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Okay, so how do we make sure that young people in South Africa are prepared for these jobs?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it just about like encouraging them to study engineering?
Well,
Or is it broader than that?
it's definitely more nuanced. I think we need to be equipping young people, especially in rural areas where a lot of these projects are,
Right.
with the right skills.
Okay.
So that means making sure educational institutions are offering the right programs, the right training programs.
Got it. So it's really a collaborative effort here.
Yeah.
What about the private companies, though,
Mm-hmm.
that are actually building these renewable energy projects?
Yeah.
What role do they play?
Oh, they have a huge role to play.
Okay.
I think providing that practical experience,
Yeah.
through like apprenticeship programs,
Yeah.
on-the-job training.
Got it.
That's
Great.
the thing.
So it's about creating a pipeline of skilled workers
Exactly.
who can really jump into these jobs.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the skills piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
What else does the source highlight about the potential for job creation
Right.
in this sector?
Well, one thing that's really interesting is that renewable energy creates jobs across the entire value chain. Okay.
Not just in the technical roles
Yeah.
we were talking about.
I'm intrigued. Break that down for me.
So,
Yeah.
you need people to manufacture the components for solar panels, for wind turbines.
Right.
You need people to install them, maintain them,
Okay.
develop the projects, manage the finances, handle the logistics.
So it's a whole ecosystem.
It is.
Yeah.
That's whole.
A whole ecosystem of jobs.
So it's not just about,
Yeah.
engineers and technicians, but all these supporting roles
Exactly.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And what's particularly interesting is this idea of localization. So the source talks about South Africa potentially producing its own solar panels
Wow.
and wind turbine components.
Okay. Instead of importing everything.
Right.
So they could actually build a whole industry around this
Exactly.
within South Africa.
Yeah, and that's where the job creation potential
Right.
gets really exciting.
Yeah.
Think about manufacturing jobs, installation jobs,
Wow.
maintenance jobs.
It's like this ripple effect spreading throughout the country.
Exactly.
So we've talked about the global renewable energy boom, the skills needed,
Yeah.
even the potential for like an entire industry to be built. The source also mentioned something about young entrepreneurs
Right.
getting involved in the sector. What's that all about?
Yeah. So that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The source kind of paints this picture of young South Africans
Yeah.
launching their own businesses in
yes.
areas like, solar installation,
Okay.
off-grid energy solutions.
Wait, hold on. Is that really feasible, though?
Well, yeah,
Like, starting a business is hard,
it is.
especially for young people.
Right. But the cost of solar technology
Yeah.
is decreasing.
Okay.
And that makes these ventures much more accessible,
Got it.
especially for rural communities where access to electricity is
Yeah.
a major challenge.
So young entrepreneurs are seeing an opportunity here
Yeah.
to both bring clean energy to their communities, but also build a business
Exactly.
at the same time.
It's a win-win.
That's amazing.
It is.
But they need support,
Oh,
right?
wow, absolutely.
To succeed.
They need access to funding,
Yeah.
mentorship, networks, all of that.
So it's not just about the technology itself,
Right.
but about creating an environment
Yeah.
where these young entrepreneurs can thrive.
Exactly.
This is starting to paint a really fascinating picture
Yeah.
of how renewable energy could really transform South Africa.
It is. Yeah.
This is way more complex and exciting
Yeah.
than I initially imagined.
It's a deep dive for a reason.
I know, right? And this is just the beginning.
Yeah, we've only just scratched the surface.
Okay, so let's keep digging.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've talked about this global boom. We've talked about the skills that are needed. We even talked about, the potential for entrepreneurship in this space.
Yeah.
But what about the role of government? Like, does the source mention anything about, like, policies or anything?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Supportive policies are so important
Yeah.
if we want to attract investment in renewable energy.
Right.
And actually make sure those investments turn into real jobs.
Right. Okay, so what kind of policies are we talking about?
Well, things like tax breaks for companies that are investing in renewable energy projects,
Okay.
or grants to help small businesses get off the ground.
Okay.
And of course, just streamlining the process
Yeah.
for approving these projects.
Yeah, so it's not as simple as just, like,
Yeah.
saying, hey, let's build a wind farm.
Right.
There's a whole regulatory landscape that needs to be navigated.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And, the source mentioned the bidding process for REIPPPP projects
Okay.
can be quite complex.
Okay.
So that could potentially discourage smaller companies
Got it.
or even community-owned initiatives.
Right. So it's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between encouraging large-scale investment, but also making sure that smaller players and local communities can participate as well.
Yeah, exactly. Making sure everyone benefits.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So even with, like, supportive policies and a skilled workforce,
Yeah.
are there any other pitfalls
Yeah, that's a great question.
that we need to be aware of?
No solution is perfect.
Right.
And, the REIPPPP has been successful in many ways,
Yeah.
but there have been some criticisms about how it's been implemented.
Oh, really? Okay, what kind of criticisms?
Well, some argue that the bidding process for these renewable energy projects
Yeah.
can favor larger, more established companies.
Right.
That might shut out smaller players
Got it.
or local communities.
Okay, so what can be done to address that?
I think it's about thoughtful policy design,
Okay.
not just creating policies that attract investment,
Yeah.
but that also address these potential barriers to entry.
Right. So maybe like
Yeah.
simplifying the bidding process, providing support for those smaller businesses, even setting aside a certain percentage of projects specifically for community-owned initiatives.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about making sure everyone has a seat at the table
I like that.
and that everyone benefits.
Yeah. And that brings up another point that the source makes
Right.
about ensuring that this transition
Yeah,
is inclusive.
right.
So what does that look like in practice?
I think, for starters,
Yeah.
we need to acknowledge that access to opportunity isn't equal
Right.
and be mindful of the historical inequalities that exist in South Africa.
Yeah.
We need to be creating policies and programs
Right.
that address those barriers.
So we're talking about going beyond just creating jobs.
Yeah,
Thinking about, like, how do you actually empower communities
exactly.
to be participants in this
Yeah.
transition?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Okay.
And one way to do that is through community-owned renewable energy projects.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, like, imagine
Yeah.
a rural village in South Africa that's not just benefiting from clean energy,
Yeah.
but is actually generating and managing their own energy
Wow.
through like a community-owned solar farm.
So it's about giving those communities agency
Yeah,
over their own destiny. That's really cool.
exactly.
It's a powerful image.
It is.
But is it realistic, like, to expect this kind of transformation
Right.
to happen smoothly? I mean,
It's a good question.
there's got to be challenges
There will be challenges.
along the ways.
Absolutely.
What are some of those challenges?
I think one challenge is making sure that we're not just focused on creating jobs in the short term,
Okay.
but also thinking about the long-term sustainability
Right.
of this sector.
Yeah.
So, for example, what happens if the demand for a particular type of renewable energy technology declines?
Right.
How do we make sure that workers can adapt and transition to new roles?
Right. So it's not just about training them for the jobs today,
Yeah.
but also about giving them the skills to adapt.
Like-
As the industry continues to evolve, that's really interesting.
It's about being adaptable,
Yeah.
being lifelong learners.
I like that.
Yeah.
But even if we overcome all of these challenges, there's still the issue of scale,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that this is happening at a pace
Right.
that can actually make a dent in this youth unemployment crisis?
It's about collaboration.
Okay.
We need a coordinated effort
Okay.
from government, the private sector, and
Yeah.
civil society.
So it's not about, like,
Yeah.
one group taking the lead here.
No.
It's about everyone working together
Exactly.
towards this shared goal.
And each sector has its own strengths.
Okay.
You know, government can provide that enabling environment
Right.
through supportive policies and regulations.
Yeah.
The private sector can bring capital expertise
Mhm.
that drive to innovate.
And civil society can advocate for the needs of the communities.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's like this complex ecosystem,
Yeah.
but it's also a very hopeful one.
It is.
If all of these different players
Mhm.
can actually work together
Yeah.
effectively.
It's a huge opportunity
Yeah.
to create a brighter future.
Okay, so we've talked about the role of government.
Yeah.
We've talked about, ensuring that this transition is inclusive.
Mhm.
We've talked about the challenges
Right.
that need to be overcome.
Yeah.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle I'm curious about.
Okay.
The source mentions this idea of youth-led innovation.
Right.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And how does that fit into everything else we've been talking about?
That's a great question. And that's something I'm really passionate about.
Okay.
You see, young people are often at the forefront of change.
Mm-hmm.
They're not afraid to challenge the status quo,
Yeah.
to think outside the box,
Right.
to come up with innovative solutions to complex problems.
Okay. That's.
And in the context of renewable energy,
Yeah.
that's exactly what we need.
It's not just about providing young people with jobs,
Right.
but it's also about empowering them
Yeah.
to be the drivers of innovation
Exactly.
in
Yeah.
this space.
And there's so many inspiring examples of this already happening
Okay.
in South Africa.
Like what?
You know, young entrepreneurs are developing off-grid energy solutions
Okay.
for rural communities. They're creating mobile apps
Right.
to monitor solar panel performance.
That's cool.
They're coming up with creative ways to harness the power of renewable energy.
So they're really stepping up
Yeah.
and taking ownership of this.
They are. And it's not just about technical innovation. They're
Yeah.
bringing fresh perspectives to these social and economic aspects
Right.
of this transition as well.
Okay.
You know, they're thinking about how to make renewable energy more accessible,
Yeah.
more affordable for everyone.
Yeah.
How to create jobs that are both meaningful and sustainable.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's inspiring
Yeah.
to see this happening.
There's like a real sense of hope
Yeah.
and optimism.
Yeah, that's what gives me hope for the future.
Yeah.
You know, this transition to a renewable energy future,
Mhm.
it's not just about technology or economics, it's
Yeah.
about people.
Yeah.
It's about empowering communities.
It's about building a better world
Exactly.
for everyone.
It's something worth fighting for.
Well said. So if our listener
Yeah.
is listening to this and wants to know,
Yeah.
like, what can they do
Right.
to be a part of this?
Yeah.
What can they take away from all of this?
That's a great question.
That's a great question. And I think, sometimes these big global issues
Yeah.
can feel really overwhelming. Like, what can I actually do
Right.
to make a difference?
Yeah. But individual actions
Right.
do matter.
So what are some things our listener can do? Like
Yeah.
any practical tips come to mind?
Well, I think one thing is, have
Okay.
you ever thought about switching to a renewable energy provider
Oh, okay.
for your home? A lot of areas have options now where you can actually source your electricity from solar or wind.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple change.
Yeah.
That can make a big difference.
I know. I've been meaning to look into that
Yeah.
myself. What else can people do?
Well, transportation is another big one.
Okay.
Could you, bike more, walk more instead of driving?
Right.
Maybe explore public transportation options.
Okay.
And, even just carpooling
Right.
with friends or colleagues can help.
Those are really great suggestions.
Yeah.
And I think that also ties into this idea that you mentioned earlier
Mm.
about voting with your wallet.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Every time you make a purchase,
Yeah.
you're kind of casting a vote for the kind of world
Yeah.
you want to see.
I like that.
So try to support businesses that are committed to sustainability. Look for products that are made from recycled materials
Okay.
or that have minimal packaging.
It's about being a conscious consumer.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great.
And don't underestimate the power of just talking about this stuff
Yeah.
with your friends and family.
Right.
Share what you've learned,
Yeah.
about renewable energy and jobs and how it can help communities.
It's amazing how much impact just a conversation can
Yeah.
have, right?
Just raising awareness
Yeah.
can make a difference.
It can really start to shift that narrative
It can.
and inspire others to act.
Yeah, and the more people who are aware and engaged,
Right.
the faster this transition can happen.
I like that. And I think it also ties back
Yeah.
to this theme of youth-led innovation
Exactly.
you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The more we can encourage that curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
that critical thinking,
Yeah.
the passion for problem solving,
Absolutely.
the better off we'll be.
Yeah, it's about fostering that culture of innovation
Yeah,
where young people feel empowered
I love it.
to come up with their own solutions.
This has been such an inspiring conversation.
Yes.
We've explored so many different facets
We have.
of this issue.
Yeah, from the global context
Right.
to the specific challenges
Yeah.
facing South Africa.
And most importantly,
Yeah,
what we can all do
right.
to be a part of the solution.
It's been a really great deep dive,
Yeah.
and I hope our listener feels empowered
Yeah.
and motivated.
To keep learning.
Yeah, to
Well.
continue exploring this topic.
This is just the beginning
It
of a
is
conversation.
so much more to learn and discover.
Well said. And on that note of hope and possibility,
Yeah,
we'll bring this deep dive to a close.
awesome.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery.